Mark Waldman has stopped by again for the second time, and we're so delighted that he's here to really give us more, because we want more. Every time we love a great dish or something that really motivates us, we want more of it. So I've had so many people, my patrons, request that you come back, and so thank you for being back again with us, Mark Waldman,
oh, it's who my is.
Thank you for being here. The Cafe of Dreams really is all about the power of mentorship, both being a mentor and having one. And as we talked last time when you visited us in the Cafe of Dreams, and you told us about who your mentors were, and you really expanded, I think, the definition for us on mentorship in many ways. And what I thought was the most fascinating way that you expanded upon it was to include the concept of a friend. And I'd like to start there.
Sure. As
we come together again today, Mark, and ask you if you could take us a little deeper into what you know about the brain and the neuroscience of the brain, and specifically maybe talk to us a little bit about some of your exercises that you have in, Mark Waldman has his program that he teaches called Neuro Wisdom 101, and we'll get a little bit more into that later. But the concept of a friend, I have been very aware that in this program, as I do this program, I am becoming better friends with my own brain, as if it's possible to really have a deeper, trusting relationship with one's own thinking and one's own thought mechanisms, and perhaps creating better trust and good feeling and goodwill and so forth. I wonder if maybe we can begin talking about the concept of befriending your brain by way of the neurosciences and how you understand the brain to work.
Well, I'm going to do something a little bit more than that.
Okay, good.
Because it's easy for anybody to talk about anything and pass on intellectual knowledge to another person. But one of the things we've learned in brain science is that the way in which we are talking right now and the way in which you, the audience, is listening to me right now, you're not going to remember very much of it because you're using one of 6 levels of conscious awareness. I just call everyday decision making. This is everyday consciousness, and it's a rather lazy form of thinking to make any changes in your life.
Is that why, sitting as a student in college and listening to professors, we don't really recall an awful lot of it? Is that why?
No. When you're sitting in my classroom, you're going to learn a lot more, because if you don't learn what I want you to learn, I give you an F. So we
have motivation.
You have fear. Most teachers use fear to motivate their students. It's not the best motivator in the world. Pleasure is the greatest motivator in the world. And so if the teacher or the mentor or the friend can somehow inseminate a sense of pleasure into the process of conveying information, the dopamine that gets released from your nucleus accumbens flows into the areas that control everyday consciousness, and you can actually see in a brain scan study, consciousness begins to spread. You get more and more of your frontal lobes begin to light up until it actually connects to parts of your brain, like the insula and the anterior cingulate, that stimulate the intuitive levels of awareness. This is when you have that gut level feeling, that intuition that this is the right way to go, even though it might not make logical, rational sense to these little tiny parts of your dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. So repeat that after me 3 times.
But where does the pleasure begin? And is there a particular part of the brain there that recognizes or produces pleasure?
Yes. Your entire brain, you can actually boil it down to it being a pain-pleasure mechanism.
Is that right?
The moment any creature, whether it be a worm, which doesn't have any eyes, or a reptile, or a frog, or a fish, or a dog, or a cat, or you and me, the moment we open up our eyes, the moment we wake up, the brain is looking for anything in the environment that is new and different and offers the promise of pleasure. So if you're hungry, pleasure is the satisfaction you get from eating something that fills your belly.
Like here in the Cafe of Dreams, we have all of our courses, the appetizers, the main dishes, and we have the desserts, which are always pleasure-bound, right?
Yes. The same thing if we're looking for a mate. We're not looking for a mate who's scowling and walking around and being miserable, whatever else. If you walk into a social situation, how are you doing? Oh, my day is miserable. I'm just going through bankruptcy. My wife and children have just left me and everything. No, I'll guarantee you people are going to move away from you as fast as possible because it's stimulating the pain center in your brain. So our brains are keenly attuned to anything that offers future pleasure. And knowledge is future pleasure. You put a rat in a maze and put all kinds of unusual items in it it's never seen before. First, it's going to freeze to see if there's any threat. Is there any pain involved? No pain? I'm going to move towards it. If it's different, here's what the rat does. It takes that object and stores it in a corner and will hoard it for the rest of its life.
Wow.
And the question is why? Because even the rat with a little tiny brain knows that anything new might be a tool or useful in the future to get at what it wants. And because we have such huge imaginations, we want everything. And so when you see somebody who's really hoarding everything, it's just that basic pleasure mechanism, that motivation and reward circuit going a little bit crazy. So it releases dopamine. Dopamine is the pleasure. Anytime you see anything new or different, anytime you think of something that may bring you some reward or satisfaction down the road,